After breaking free from her toxic marriage, Alice fully steps into her new life. She builds her own jewelry business, Livia Belle, treating craftsmen fairly and quickly gaining success thanks to her intelligence and experience from her past life. With the help of her loyal maid Neri, she hires staff, opens the store, and proves her talent not only in business, but also in handling difficult customers. As her reputation grows, Alice secures a powerful partnership with Duke Rumiester, who becomes both her business ally and a potential romantic interest. Together, they attend a prestigious royal ball, where Alice makes a stunning entrance, confidently showcasing her jewelry and attracting the attention of high society. Despite whispers about her divorce, she skillfully turns the situation to her advantage, promoting her brand and winning over influential noblewomen. Meanwhile, her ex-husband and his new bride watch from afar, shocked by her transformation and success. By the end, Alice achieves her goal. She is no longer the humiliated duchess, but a confident, independent woman building her own empire, with new opportunities and perhaps new relationships on the horizon. This is the same impudent guy who bought the necklace. He asks if she remembers him, and she replies yes, adding silently that such a day is hard to forget. The girl notices his outfit and begins to suspect that he is not so simple. He looked to be about 25, and if he was from the royal family, then why hadn't she seen him before? A sudden thought makes her bow and greet him like a prince. He sheepishly says that formalities are unnecessary, and Alice understands that in front of her is indeed a prince. She carefully asks how he knows her and wonders if he holds a grudge. However, he himself was then disguised as a commoner, so the situation was ambiguous. The prince suddenly apologizes, explaining that he wanted to give his sister a special gift. He admits that he was too harsh that day, and Alice realizes that she must respond carefully. She says that she could have expressed herself more clearly, so she doesn't hold a grudge. The prince notices that words alone are not enough, and it seems to her that he is ready to apologize even more seriously. He explains that he doesn't want there to be any misunderstanding between them. Alice assures that everything is fine, although the idea of any kind of between them sounds too strong. Then the blonde offers to invite her to dinner and asks what she thinks. The girl understands that there is already enough intrigue surrounding her name today. Adding a prince to the rumors could lead to her being seen as a title-hunting woman. But this isn't the kind of interest she's looking for. The prince says he simply wants to treat her, with no ulterior motives. At that moment, the Duke's voice is heard, having found Miss Harpen. He bows to the prince and greets him. The Duke notices that the prince has not been to balls for a long time, and he replies that he came as Alice's partner. Eugene says he's been looking for her for a long time, and offers to walk her home. The prince asks if he really intends to take her away. The Duke replies that it was he who invited her and is responsible for the rest of the evening. The prince asks coldly if they are that close, and the Duke takes a step closer to Alice. He calmly says that they only danced one dance, and if they were so close, there would have been more. The Duke adds that Miss Harpen felt slightly unwell, so there is nothing to worry about. The prince notices the insolence in his words, and the Duke replies that he is only telling the truth. Alice stands between them and says that she really has to go. She politely says goodbye to the prince, explaining that she is tired and hopes for understanding. The prince is about to object, but the Duke immediately supports her decision. He says that the lady looks tired and apologizes to His Highness. Alice thinks that even a duke from an influential family should be careful with the prince. The blonde agrees that since the lady is tired, they can go. As Alice leaves, she realizes that she has the right to refuse dinner, even if it is the prince who invites her. Someone behind her notices that the situation is funny, and she walks next to the Duke and wonders if they should hold hands all the time. The Duke asks her to wait, and she feels as if he heard her thoughts. He takes off his jacket and puts it over her shoulders, saying that she might be cold. She objects, but he insists that she is dressed too lightly. Alice thanks him, and he asks if it's gotten warmer. She notices his serious look and pulls herself together. She reminds herself to think only about business, and he asks if she's shaking. The girl says that everything is fine and offers to return the jacket later. The Duke suddenly admits that he feels a little awkward, and she asks why. He thinks that he took her away from the ball too abruptly. Alice smiles and says that, on the contrary, she is grateful to him. Thanks to him, she avoided an awkward situation and didn't look impolite. The Duke asks what else the prince said, and she clarifies what exactly he means. He explains that he is interested in more than just dinner. Alice replies that the prince only apologized for the previous incident. The Duke asks if she knew him before, and she says no. There was just an awkward incident one day when he was wearing a simple outfit. The Duke understands and promises not to ask further questions. Alice thanks him for the evening, saying that this ball was a turning point. She could have remained in the shadows, but now she has re-emerged into society and promoted her business. The Duke replies that he, too, benefits from her prosperity. They are in the same boat, and he is honored to be the partner of such a woman. He notices the carriage approaching, and Alice is surprised at how quickly time has passed. He helps her sit up, and she holds out her hand. As he says goodbye, he says they will see each other soon, and she asks if it is about the mine. He replies that he has business to attend to as well, and she asks him to contact her. On the way home, the girl wonders if he has found a new deposit, and the Duke reflects that he simply wants to talk to her more often. After some time, Alice realizes that the advertising's effect was even better than expected. The very next day, ladies from the ball come to the store. Thanks to Madame Jackie, the flow of clients almost doubles. The maid happily reports a sharp increase in sales. She says it's a true gift from fate. The workday ends in the evening. At home, Neri serves tea, and Alice understands that it will soon become difficult for Aji and Celine to be together. The maid asks if the miss gets tired, since she works both in the store and at home. The girl shows her the sales chart. After the ball, the numbers increased by 50%, and Neri is delighted. Alice notices that the numbers have dropped slightly since then, but the overall increase is clear. The maid calls it a real success. Alice is happy, but she understands that she must not let her guard down. Her situation is now stable, despite how she was treated in Fei Heron's house. She built a jewelry business and returned to high society. And the relationship with Duke Remester so far looks like just a slight interest, but this is just the beginning. And she tells Neri that it's time to order a logo. She is planning a large store symbol that will hang on the wall. Neri clarifies that it is about the swan, and Alice confirms. The name La Vie Belle should immediately evoke associations with a white swan. The store will become a symbol of quality throughout the empire. At this time, one man in the office hears a knock and allows entry. The servant informs the Marquis of the serious losses, and he flares up with anger. The servant hints that the reason lies in one woman, and the man demands an explanation. They tell him they're talking about Fei Heron's ex-wife. Meanwhile, Neri asks if there's any meaning to the memorable drawing. Alice explains that this is the brand's strength. A good logo makes a name recognizable, without unnecessary words. Neri agrees, because a picture is easier to remember than a name. She wonders how the lady came up with such an idea. Then he asks how many more workers are planned to be hired, and Alice asks her opinion. Neri believes that 3 people will be enough for the current influx of customers. 1 assistant each for Aji and Celine, and 1 more person to control the store and report to the lady. The girl asks if she's mistaken, and the main character simply hugs Neri and says everything she said is correct. She calls her a reliable partner. Neri shyly replies that she is just learning from Miss, but Alice assures her that she is doing brilliantly. Neri then asks if anything else is needed, and Elisa admits there's 1 more step. They plan to open a second branch. The maid is surprised by this decision, and the girl calmly says that she had thought about it from the very beginning. If sales are stable over the next 2 months, it means they've earned customer trust. Then, they can confidently expand. Neri clarifies whether this means that new La Vie Belle stores will open. Alice confirms and adds that they will start small, and then the network will grow. She explains that this is called franchising, opening stores under their name in other locations. Neri asks what the benefit of having the same name is, and Alice says she will receive a commission for using the brand, like rent for the land. The maid, amazed, asks if she can simply borrow a name and make money. Then she exclaims that Miss will soon be rich. Alice smiles and replies that they will become rich together. Neri is embarrassed, considering herself just a servant. But Alice says that Neri has long been more than just a servant of the Harpin Fei Heron family, but a smart and business-like partner. Neri turns to Miss with emotion, and she reminds him that it was thanks to her that she overcame all the difficulties. The maid replies that it was she who became happy next to Miss. Alice says that when everyone turned their backs, Neri stayed by her side, and for that she is eternally grateful. Neri became a real family to her. With tears in her eyes, she hugs Miss. She promises to follow her wherever she goes and always be there. Alice replies that together they can overcome any difficulties. She is confident that happiness awaits them and is ready to do everything for this. The next day, Alice invites Neri to go to a real estate agency. Neri wonders why, and here's the answer. They need an office and new employees. The office will be responsible for expansion issues. Alice says they'll both be working there. Neri understands that she will have to take on some of the work. She clarifies whether this means that she will now be separate from Mr. Aji and Miss Celine. Alice reassures her that the office will be close to the store. At some point, Alice thinks that Neri is the same age as her younger brother. The thought of her brother distracts her, and she tries to switch her focus. But instead, he remembers the Duke's smile, and then she catches herself, deciding that there's something clearly wrong with her thoughts like that. Neri exclaims that it's not true. Alice laughs, and when asked what happened, she replies that everything is fine, and reminds him about the office inspection tomorrow. Neri assumes Miss is simply tired. After a while, they're already in the shop. When Mr. Aji arrives, Neri informs him. Alice is glad he arrived on time. The guy notices that she seems to have good news. Alice asks him to come closer. She says she plans to hire 4 more workers. 2 will help him and Miss Celine, and she and Neri will move to the office. Aji sadly says that they only have a little time left to work together. Alice assures that they will see each other often. The guy agrees, and she smiles to herself, realizing that he is a real treasure of the store. It is Mr. Aji who maintains the flow of clients. As soon as he starts explaining something with a smile, the girls lose their heads buying jewelry. One day, one of the ladies even passed him a note. He asked what it was, and she asked to read it in private. The girl immediately ran away, leaving him bewildered. Alice jokes that with such attention, the store will definitely be busy. Aji shyly replies that it is the lady's merit. Alice says that he has a natural gift for attracting people, and he should be more confident. The guy bows his head, and she asks what happened. He is surprised that he actually has abilities. Alice confirms, but he doubts himself. Then she explains that everyone should know their strengths. After that, she asks the charming Mr. Aji to take care of the store. Soon, another customer enters the shop. Neri is about to say that they are closed, but freezes when she sees a stern man. Alice rises and recognizes the Marquis of Black. He walks inside, roughly pushing aside the maid, and sarcastically remarks that Madame has become famous. Alice restrains her emotions and responds with a smile, hinting that perhaps his wife wanted the jewelry. The Marquis asks sharply if she doesn't understand why he came. He claims to represent Jane's, Merchel, and Spiman. Marquis Black is the head of the largest jewelry company, and the rest of the companies are part of their cartel. They control the supply and the market. And now he's outraged that some woman has interfered with their business. He accuses her of using the Duke's money and daring to compete. Olgi flares up in anger. Neri stands in front of him and demands an apology for his rudeness. Alice stops them and calmly asks the Marquis about the purpose of his visit. He says he's tired of putting up with her insolence. Alice asks what kind of nonsense he means. The Marquis slams the table and shouts about colossal losses. He accuses her of luring away all the jewelers. Alice replies that she simply offered the masters better conditions. She asks if he wants her to terminate the contract. The Marquis confirms and hints that she should not interfere in their sphere. Then Alice puts forward a condition. Let him pay the craftsmen's salaries for 3 years in advance. Taking into account premiums, this is from 120 to 240 million denites. The Marquis, in a rage, calls this madness. Neri understands that the lady will not give in, and the man shouts that she is pushing them to the bottom. He states that in business one must follow traditions. Alice replies that these traditions only covered up the exploitation of the craftsmen. The Marquis resorts to personal insults and threatens to teach her a lesson. He orders his men to enter, and armed men burst into the store. The leader shouts at them to smash the windows. But suddenly, someone grabs him by the arm and orders him to stop. The man indignantly asks who this guy is and if he knows who he is dealing with. He orders them to deal with him first, but the young man calmly asks if they are sure they know him. The response is a mockery of a pauper. The young man coldly advises not to throw around words without meaning. They grab him, and Neri, in a panic, asks the Marquis to stop. Alice says that Mr. Aji needs to be stopped. The room bursts into flames. The guy warns that if they want to get closer, they will have to take risks. The Marquis calls him annoying, and Neri remarks that the fire really does work. Alice remembers how Aji said that he could guard the store. She understands that without him, Livia Bell would be destroyed. The Marquis, in a rage, calls him a puppy. Aja dodges the blow, intercepts the arm, and knocks the opponent to the floor. He declares that he can handle it without weapons. The others retreat in panic. Alice asks them to stop, and at that moment, another person enters the store. Aji asks who it is, and Neri recognizes Duke Rumester. The Marquis rises, and the Duke addresses him by name. He coldly asks, "What's going on here?" The Marquis can't put a word together. Alice notices that in front of strong people, he immediately loses confidence. She explains to the Duke that a business conflict has arisen. The Duke says that he already understood everything. He emphasizes that Miss Harpen is his main partner and close friend. And he asks if the Marquis really dared to threaten her. Alice senses that even without shouting, there's real power in his voice. The man declares that from this day on, he will no longer do any business with the Marquis, and he literally freezes in shock. The Marquis tries to justify himself, saying he just wanted to talk. But in response, he asks a reasonable question. Why bring mercenaries for a simple conversation? The Duke coldly adds that he thought their relationship was friendly, but after what he had seen, it was impossible to continue it. The Marquis panics and asks him not to do this, and Alice realizes that she did not expect such harshness from the Duke. The Marquis reminds that their families have been friends since the time of their fathers, but the Duke replies that the length of the relationship does not matter to him. He's not going to work with someone who intimidates people for profit. The Marquis loses his temper and blames Alice, claiming that because of her he is facing ruin, since it was she who violated trade regulations. Aji, hearing this, is ready to rush forward, but Alice stops him in time. When she steps forward, the boy asks what she's going to do. Alice understands that he can't interfere. With the Duke's arrival, things became even more complicated, and suddenly she bows her head, declaring that she is ashamed of her thoughts. Everyone is surprised, and the Marquis maliciously decides that she has finally come to her senses. Aji doesn't understand her words, but Alice continues, admitting that for a moment she was almost scared. She was frightened by such an impudent and cruel person, and that is precisely why she feels embarrassed in front of herself. The Duke smiled faintly, as if he had expected this, and the Marquis insulted her in a rage. Alice calmly says that she cannot accept the fact that he underpaid the craftsmen and exploited their labor. Let him bring mercenaries or form alliances with other companies. She doesn't care. Neri admiringly calls the lady the bravest, and the Marquis sarcastically says that then the miners will also demand a pay raise. He asks if this is normal, and the Duke replies with a slight smile that he has already raised the miners' pay by a quarter. Alice is amazed, and the Marquis cannot believe his ears. As he's about to object, the Duke places his hand on his shoulder and says the decision is final. If the Marquis disturbs Miss Harpen again, the consequences will be severe. Then he tells him to leave. As the Marquis leaves the shop, Alice suddenly collapses to the floor, and the Duke immediately asks if she is all right. The workers run up to her, and she assures them that everything is fine. Neri tearfully notices that her hands are shaking, and Alice realizes that she has simply been holding herself in tension for too long. Aji also addresses her, and she says that they all had a hard time. The Duke helps her up and asks if she is injured, offering to examine her more closely. Alice replies that she is fine, and rather that she put him in an awkward position. Aji lowers his hand, watching them, and Alice addresses all the employees. She apologizes to them too, but Neri is surprised, because the Marquis is to blame. Ajay supports her, saying that the lady did nothing wrong, and Alice thanks him. She then thanks the Duke, admitting that she did not expect such an act. Eugene replies that her affairs concern him too, since they are partners. He introduces himself to Aji as Eugene Rumister, Miss Harpen's business partner. Aji bows and states his name. The Duke notes that the guy managed to stop the Marquis and his men, which means he has serious strength. Aji modestly says that he is just a salesman, but the Duke asks not to take his words with hostility. He adds that Miss Harpen's family and friends are important to him too. Aji sheepishly remarks that he's a simple man. The Duke replies that he cannot immediately become familiar with someone he sees for the first time. Alice watches them and feels a slight tension between them. She asks the Duke what business he came on. He smiles and reminds her that she herself invited him to visit the store. He did not expect such an incident, and Alice thanks him for his help, admitting that everything was resolved thanks to him. The Duke says he should have come sooner, and if something like this happens again, he will completely sever ties with those responsible. Then he adds that one thing caught his attention. He points to the display case behind Neri. Neri turns around, and Alice explains that these are the store's main decorations. The Duke is amazed by their appearance. He asks who created the designs, and Alice replies that the ideas mostly belong to their masters. Mr. Harley Penson collects sketches and sends them to her. She selects the best options, and the craftsmen transform them into finished products. The Duke notes the systematic approach and the harmony of color and form. He points out the ruby leaves and emerald moon, and Alice says she suggested swapping the color and shape. Usually everything is done differently, but she wanted something fresh. The Duke says she has fine taste, and the result is beautiful. Alice is embarrassed and replies that she only suggested an idea, but the beauty was created by the masters. The Duke emphasizes that this is a combination of skill and her impeccable taste. Neri adds that they have jewelry with birthstones based on months. The Duke is surprised, and Alice explains that in a separate display case, you can choose a stone corresponding to your birth month. January is garnet, February is amethyst, and December is turquoise. Customers can order a necklace or bracelet in their chosen design. Aji adds that such items carry special meaning and make a wonderful gift. Alice praises their explanations and asks if everything really sounds convincing. After all, they are the ones who ensure high sales. The Duke says it's an original approach, and it's no wonder customers are delighted. Alice thinks that such stones have already proven their popularity in her past life. The Duke remarks that it is a pity that there is only one such store. Elisa smiles and admits that she is also thinking about opening new outlets. She understands that as a supplier, he must know her plans. She explains the idea of a chain of stores under their brand, where partners will pay a percentage for using the name. For example, the second and third stores. The Duke clenches his fists for a moment, and Alice asks if everything is okay. He immediately smiles and says that she never ceases to amaze him with her ideas. Neri enthusiastically confirms that it is brilliant. Alice replies that it's far from perfect, and that the advertising still needs to be thought through, thinking how strange it is to feel praise for being clever. The Duke offers to use his name for advertising if it will be profitable. Alice thanks him, realizing that Rumiester's name will become a mark of quality. He says she can contact him anytime if she needs a joint solution. Alice replies that it is an honor for her to work with such a person, feeling his sincere support. The Duke says he does this because he wants to and does not consider it generosity. Neri notes that they are a perfect fit as partners and friends. Aji agrees, but looks at them with a slight sadness. After a while, the Duke says goodbye, and Alice thanks him. When he leaves, she realizes that Aji has had a hard time today. She invites him to have dinner together. The guy is surprised, and she says she wants to thank him. He agrees. Neri happily asks if there will be a tasty dinner, and Alice confirms. They sit down to have dinner and a heart-to-heart talk. Alice thanks Aji for accepting the invitation and asks Neri to help in the kitchen, inviting him to make himself at home. In the kitchen, the cook is surprised by her early return, and Alice asks him to cook more because the guests are hungry. The cook assures that there will be enough food. Soon the table is laden with food, and everyone admires the quantity. Alice says that today is a special dinner and wishes everyone bon appétit. Neri supports her, Aji thanks her, and they begin to eat. After some time, Alice thanks Aji for his actions. She says that without him the store would suffer huge losses, and Neri agrees. Alice adds that, thanks to him, they remained unharmed. Aji replies that he simply did what he had to. He couldn't let those people threaten them. Alice notes that standing up to people like the Marquis takes courage. Aji repeats her words and says that there is no need to be afraid of titles. Neri notices that he is equally confident in front of both the Marquis and the Duke. Alice understands that from the very beginning, he was just a little shy in front of her. He didn't look scared, and Neri guesses it's his magic. Alice agrees, calling him a fantastic wizard. Aji modestly replies that his level is not that outstanding, because there are much stronger magicians. Alice says that not everyone is capable of controlling such magic, and what Aji did was truly impressive. The guy bows his head in embarrassment, and she softly asks what happened. Alice notices that he seems to be just shy when he is praised. Aji admits he's rarely praised. Elisa is surprised, as he has so many virtues that it's hard to miss. He hesitantly replies that he simply wants to be useful to the lady. Neri adds that his sense of responsibility and caring for others are already his strengths, and the guy finally smiles. Sometime later, Alice sits with papers, wondering what to write next. Finding shop owners proved even more difficult than hiring workers. Now, thanks to her artisans, she has a near monopoly on jewelry supply. But this is temporary, as competitors can attract new jewelers or workers from other regions. So while there's still a chance, we need to convince as many merchants as possible to cooperate with La Vie Belle. Neri remarks that the Duke turned out to be a noble man, since he offered to use his name for advertising. Alice agrees, because an influential name is a powerful tool, and it was he who first suggested it. Neri asks if this is about the network's advertising, and Alice asks her to read the text. She admits that she is not confident in her writing skills. Neri reads it carefully and cautiously suggests his idea. Alice asks for more details. Neri believes the phrase about attractive products could be shortened. It would be better to list the main positions below, so the advertisement will be clearer and more effective. Alice praises her idea, and Neri adds that it would be worth including a logo and a short description of the brand. Alice is amazed that Neri noticed something she had missed. After all, her talent might have gone unnoticed before. Neri worries that she might have gone too far, but Alice assures her that her proposal is even better. She puts her hand on her shoulder and says that Neri often notices important details. Neri is touched, and Alice decides to change her marketing strategy a little. Neri reminds that the current method already works effectively. Alice agrees, but understands that she can't hold out like this for long. Right now, they rely on word of mouth, as there are no blogs or social media. But this method has its limits. The brand must be firmly established in the memory of customers. Alice sighs, admitting that no ideas are coming yet, and Neri promises to think about it with her. The cook enters the room and suggests taking a tea break. Alice is surprised when she sees the cake. Neri admits that this was her idea because sweets can inspire a good thought. Alice is worried about her figure, but the maid assures her that she has nothing to fear. Alice tries the cake anyway, and wonders why she's still obsessed with her weight. Previously, she limited herself for the sake of her ex-husband, who humiliated her. Now she takes another piece, realizing that she is no longer obliged to please anyone. She smiles and admits that the cake is incredibly delicious. Neri is happy because their cook always cooks well. Alice decides that she needs to gather her strength first and then think about strategy. Later, she notices a newspaper and a letter in the mailbox. Seeing the signature, she realizes it is from the prince. Alice wonders what business he could have with her and returns to the mansion. In the office, she recalls that not everything went smoothly at the ball. In the letter, the prince writes that he wants to discuss her jewelry business. Alice hopes that he doesn't have anything dangerous in mind, but she can't refuse the prince. She sends a reply, and a week later, finds herself in the royal palace. Alice greets His Highness, and he invites her to sit down. He thanks her for her visit and admits that the invitation was unexpected. The prince notes the long journey, and Alice thanks him for the invitation. He offers her some aromatic tea and asks if she would like to try it. Alice is amazed that the prince pours the tea himself and offers to do it herself. There is a strict hierarchy in this society, and it is usually the servant who does this. But the prince calmly says that everything is fine. He jokingly remarks that he is not used to spilling tea and hopes that she will be able to drink it calmly. Alice thanks and takes a sip. The tea is truly aromatic, and she notes its taste, trying to understand the prince's intentions. She reminds him that he wanted to talk about business. The prince smiles, and Alice decides to get straight to the point. He agrees to discuss the main thing, but first he wants to say something. Alice becomes wary, and the prince declares that he wants to apologize. He admits that at that time he was only thinking about his own interests. He suggests that she felt resentment, and Alice notices how much he has changed. She did not expect such sincerity, and the prince notes her surprise. Alice denies this, and the prince says that his sister scolded him for that incident. She said that with such an attitude no one would love him, and he thought about it. Alice understands that even a prince can get a reprimand from his sister. He apologizes again and moves on to the proposal. A few days later, Alice gathers the craftsmen. They are surprised by the rare meeting and wonder if a new order has appeared. One of the masters asks for attention because the news is urgent. Alice announces that they have a new client. The craftsmen are inspired because a large order promises success. When asked who it is, she replies that it is the royal palace. The prince wants to entrust them with the production of royal jewelry. Alice asked him if this was true and received confirmation. He had already discussed this with the king and showed them their products, which made an impression. Alice realizes that this is an incredible advertising opportunity. The prince noticed how she literally beamed when talking about business. He emphasizes that this is not just an apology, but a recognition of the quality of its products. Their decorations are truly worthy of a palace. If they live up to expectations, he will completely trust her in this direction. Alice is amazed, and the prince adds that for 3 months, orders will be placed only with her. She understands that this is not just a chance, but a real breakthrough. Alice thanks him and takes responsibility. The prince admits he was afraid she would refuse him because he was busy. Alice wonders who would refuse the palace. She promises to do everything possible. Meanwhile, the princess sits in her room. Her brother comes to her and asks if she has read the book. The princess closes it and notices that her brother looks pleased. He reports that the lady has accepted his proposal, and his sister is delighted with the quality jewelry. The prince admits that he was a little worried, but she happily agreed. He would like to offer long-term cooperation, but the decision does not depend only on him. To begin with, he has agreed on the first order and plans to discuss everything with his parents. The princess is surprised because before her brother hadn't even been interested in his wardrobe. He says they need to meet again to discuss the details. The sister nods, but notices his unusual joy. She feels like he's given her consent to go on a date. The prince asks her to meet the lady because she understands jewelry better. The princess agrees. Meanwhile, Alice informs the craftsman of a 3-month contract with the palace. If everything is to your liking, the collaboration could become permanent. She asks to put even more soul into the work. In return, he promises a generous reward. The masters unanimously assure her that they will justify her trust and give their best. The lady smiles, but at that moment one of the workers asks everyone to listen. Alice immediately asks what happened. The man says it is a great honor for him to create jewelry with his own hands that will be worn by members of the royal family. Alice understands that this is a completely different level compared to orders for the nobility. For the craftsman, delivery to the palace is no longer just a job, but true recognition. She takes the worker by the hands and says that she is also happy to walk this path with them. With tears in his eyes, he admits that since he started working with her, he has become more confident in himself and his skills. He thanks her for the decent conditions and for the chance to create for the royal family. Alice replies that if everything goes well, they can become the official suppliers of the palace. The man says she changed their lives and thanks her again. One of the workers adds that now they don't worry about tomorrow and can work calmly. Someone admits that, thanks to the lady, he fell in love with his job for the first time. Alice is embarrassed and says that it's all thanks to their talent, and they helped make her dream come true. She hopes that they will work together for a long time. The craftsmen happily agree, and Alice decides to do everything to ensure that their common business only grows. After some time, she notices that the newspaper ad worked instantly. The cooperation with the Duchy of Rumester and the contract with the palace created a sensation. Less than a week had passed before letters with offers started arriving. Among them were requests to open branches, even outside the capital. Alice understands that the alliance with a powerful family and palace has given the brand recognition. Neri says that there will be even more work now, and Alice agrees. It is necessary to prepare contracts, find a lawyer, and speed up the processes. She plans to hire more staff, and Neri says it all feels like a dream. Suddenly, Neri takes another letter and becomes gloomy. Alice asks what happened and hears that this is not a request for a branch. This letter is from the Marquis of Black. Alice is surprised because after her conversation with the Duke, she thought he would disappear. Neri reads that he is proposing a formal meeting. He apologizes for the past and promises not to be rude again. Alice doubts his sincerity, and Neri adds that he allows them to come with security. Alice understands that the meeting is unpleasant, but ignoring an entire clan is also risky. Neri reminds that there is Mr. Aji, who can handle this better than any security guard. Alice replies that he is already overloaded. Neri hints at another person who is capable of pacifying the Marquis. It's Duke Rumester, but Alice doesn't want to bother him again. Then she suggests inviting the Marquis to their new office. After some time, Neri looks around the finished office with admiration. It used to be empty, but now it looks like a real business center. Alice thinks that the Marquis won't risk causing trouble in her office. Thanks to Neri, who was in charge of the store, the office was fully prepared. Alice shows off her workspace, and Neri is happy with her own desk. They decide to make a plan for the day. An hour before the meeting, Alice wonders what the Marquis has planned. Soon there's a knock at the door. The Marquis enters. Alice greets him and hopes he is comfortable. He notices Neri, thinking she is a maid, but Alice introduces her as a secretary. The Marquis apologizes, and Alice notes that he is acting differently. She offers tea, and he thanks her. While he is bringing the cup, Alice asks about the purpose of the meeting. The Marquis thanks you for agreeing to meet and says that he came to talk. Alice understands that his politeness is connected with the influence of the Rumiesters. He admits that he has a request. Alice remembers the past scandal and doesn't know how to react. Neri quietly asks if the lady is going to agree. Alice only smiles, and the Marquis first apologizes. He says he sincerely repents. The salary increase could ruin his business, and that's why he lost his temper. Alice understands that before he didn't take anyone into account, but now he is forced to ask. She says that since he is apologizing, she is interested in hearing his request. The Marquis asks to reconsider the payment level, as the amount is too high. Alice asks if she's obligated to do this. He says that otherwise his business will collapse. This means ruin for his entire family. Alice understands that without the pressure from the Rumiesters, he would not have come. She suggests finding a way to avoid losses. And suddenly, she offers him to sell the company to her. The Marquis is amazed by this proposal. Alice clarifies that she does not intend to lower the price. Reducing wages would be a deception of the masters. A salary reduction will cause resistance from workers. She is confident that she can manage the company differently, and adds another 30% to the cost. The Marquis is shocked. Neri also thinks the amount is too high. Alice explains that this move will bring great benefits in the future. This is the price for full transfer of rights. It is easier to develop an already working system than to build everything from scratch. The Marquis is surprised, because usually buyers bargain. He thinks that he will end up at a loss because of the salaries, but Alice doesn't think so. She is confident that she can take the business to the next level. The Marquis admits that the offer is worthy. Alice offers to sign a contract with the condition of compensation if she deceives him. She is ready to answer for her words according to the law. The Marquis asks for 3 days to think about it. They shake hands. Later at the store, Aji is arranging the goods and learns about the meeting. At the table, he clarifies whether it is true that they are talking about buying the company. Alice confirms and says that Miss Celine will inform tomorrow. Aji believes this is a wise move. Buying an already successful company is profitable. Neri agrees that the lady always has a plan. Alice notices that Aji understood everything without explanation. He compares this to the expansion of the territory of a state. Alice laughs, but admits that the comparison is accurate. Aji is embarrassed and says that he just thinks the decision is smart. Neri makes a joke about his fire fist, and everyone laughs. Alice warns that after the deal, there will be even more work. She thanks Neri, Aji, and Miss Celine for their support. Aji replies that the success is due to her management. Alice asks him to continue to be there and extends her hand to him. He shakes her hand, and she says that everything will become clear tomorrow. Alice understands that there are tense times ahead, and this is just the beginning. 3 days later, the Marquis comes to the office with documents. He announces that he has made a decision. Alice thanks him and is glad that the deal took place. She asks about the documents, and the Marquis confirms that he has brought everything necessary. Alice says he prepared everything perfectly, even though there was a lot of documents. The Marquis explains that these are company valuation reports and asks her to review them calmly. She hands some papers to Neri, who asks if she can take a look. Alice nods. Looking through the reports, the girl understands why he was so resistant to raising salaries. Currently, the company's profit is about 5%, but with its markups, it will fall to 3%. If you take into account taxes and interest, the income will be even lower. Based on this data, the company can be valued at approximately 18 million denites. Alice notes that the building's appraisal is 5 years old and should be updated, as the value may have changed. The Marquis is surprised, but she asks him not to worry. She will cover the costs of the new assessment. Then Alice says that she has one more question. She asks for a list of the company's main clients, understanding that the information is confidential, but the rights are transferred to her. The Marquis hesitates and begins to leaf through the documents, assuring that the required list will be found. Alice gets a little irritated and asks how much he's counting on. He answers evasively, saying that he trusts her generosity. Alice wonders if he is hinting at additional payment. The Marquis hastens to assure her that he does not want to burden her. The girl understands that if she refuses, he will call her stingy. She thought she had convinced him, but he turned out to be a skilled trader. Neri mentally calculates that with the addition, the sum will become enormous, and does not understand what else he needs. Alice thinks about it and decides to take a risk. She says that she has no more funds, and the proposed amount is the limit. The Marquis is amazed, and she adds that she will not force him. If the conditions are not suitable, he can keep the company for himself. He quickly replies that he agrees and understands her situation. Alice clarifies whether he is really satisfied with her proposal. The Marquis says that the company belonged to his family, and he wants to see it prosper. Alice exchanges glances with Neri and winks discreetly. She thanks him for his concession and says that she appreciates his generosity. In exchange, she will pay the agreed amount in cash, and he agrees. Alice announces that she will retain Jane's staff and will meet with the employees soon. Marquis replies that he has already informed the management about the merger. The remaining documents will be transferred through a lawyer. They stand up and shake hands, confirming the deal. Looking back on their first meeting, Alice realizes how far she has come. She decides to achieve success on her own, without relying on the name of the Duke or Prince. After the deal, Things got even busier. The Jane's building was revalued, and the company's value was set. We hired a lawyer, reviewed the documents, and completed the business transfer. Thus, Jane's officially joined Livia Bell. A week later, Alice met the staff. They bow, and she asks to tell them about the distribution of responsibilities. They tell her that there is no clear division. Work is given to those who are free. Alice understands that everything was done chaotically. She decides to introduce structure and distribution of roles. The company will be operating using a new method, and employees are interested in the details. Alice has prepared the documents and invites them to review them. She explains that she will create sales and management departments. Sales will focus on products, prices, and points of sale. The department will be responsible for personnel and finance. One of the men asks about the distribution of people. Alice introduces a round-robin system. First 2 people per department, then each will choose a suitable direction. The staff remarked that this was better than the previous chaos. She asked who had been doing the accounting. The girl replies that she was doing this, and Alice asks her to continue working. She says frankly that the reports were kept in different ways, and the system needs to be improved. The girl apologizes, but Alice asks not to worry, because the structure was absent from the beginning. She is going to implement a new order and asks for support. The workers agree, and later Alice sits down on the sofa, feeling tired. The days fly by quickly, and there are still meetings ahead. She thanks everyone for their suggestions and concludes the meeting. One of the men admits that he was previously perceived as part of the company's property. Today he was able to freely express his opinion and felt joy from his work. Others support him and say that change for the better is inevitable. Alice thanks them and reminds them of the expansion of the network, asking them to share ideas. She feels that she has met reliable people. Returning home, she tells Neri about the meeting. Neri is happy and praises her, and Alice says that the staff turned out to be good. The girl is interested in the store's affairs. Neri replies that there are more clients now, and that Celine and Aji are doing a great job. Alice thanks her for her support during the merger. Neri says that she can now protect the lady, and asks to trust her. Alice laughs and says how important Neri is. She notices the embroidered flowers and praises her skill. Neri thanks and dreams of embroidering an entire flower field. Suddenly, Alice feels tension in her shoulders. Neri offers a massage, but Alice reminds her that she is no longer a maid. Neri replies that she still wants to help. Alice thanks her, and Neri jokes that she is trying to look better in front of her boss. Alice laughs, saying that she is already trying too hard. Neri jokes about overtime pay, and they both laugh. Alice says she would like to have more such lucky days. Neri asks if she has any doubts about the future. Alice admits that she sometimes thinks about the randomness of her success. Neri hugs her and says that it is not luck, but her hard work. Alice is afraid that everything might collapse. Neri assures that they will overcome any difficulties together. Alice smiles and agrees. Neri says that one day Alice will meet a worthy man, and then she will have to let her go. Alice jokes that Neri will also marry a good man. The next day, she hands Neri a letter. This is a pay stub. Neri thanks her, and Alice remembers how she once waited for payday. She added a little to the amount for a job well done. Neri questions whether it's normal to earn that much. Alice says that work should be paid fairly, even between close people. Neri asks about the salary for Aji and Celine. Alice replies that she has prepared everything, including bonuses. She wonders how they will react. Soon, Aji and Celine look at the receipts with surprise. Celine asks if the amount is correct. Aji notices that it is bigger than the previous one. Alice explains that this is the standard payment, plus a bonus for high turnover. She also mentions the merger with Jane's and future changes. Then he suggests another idea. She suggests closing the store for a couple of days and having a picnic. And he suggests that they all go on vacation together. And one of them asks if he can join them. The lady is surprised and asks if he wants to go with them. He replies that he saw how hard she and her team worked, and, as a partner, he'd like to help. Alice says that Joanna will handle the organization since the Duke is already busy. He assures that it is not at all burdensome, and if she needs help, she can ask for it at any time. The Duke talks about his country house, which is ideal for a summer holiday, and suggests spending the holiday there together. Alice asks him again what he is talking about, and he adds that the weather there is wonderful, and it would be wonderful to go there together. The girl wonders if he is hinting at a trip, just the two of them, and personal invitations are still too awkward for her. The Duke immediately clarifies that there is no hidden meaning. Nature could simply inspire her to create new jewelry designs. Alice suggests inviting Mr. Penson as well, thinking it would be useful for him. She adds that he will certainly like the idea, and the Duke understands that, as he thought, it is still too early to talk about dating Miss Harpin. He agrees, and Alice thanks him, assuring him that Mr. will definitely like it. The Duke asks to hear about the successful merger, and the lady replies that she is launching a new direction in the company's work next week. She adds that as a partner, he should be aware, so she has prepared materials for him. The man notes her thoroughness and promises to read everything carefully. Alice says she's just doing her job, and if he has any questions, he can contact her. They exchange smiles. Later, walking down the street, the girl says that she needs to go into the store. The Duke looks at his watch and asks if it is closed already. Alice replies that yes, but she has work to do without workers. She is about to go alone, and he notices that it is already late. The Duke offers to walk her, but she refuses because it is still light. She asks him to come home, and he tells her to be careful. As she leaves, he remembers how she wanted to invite Mr. Penson, and he thinks he'd like to see the same warm smile directed at him. Meanwhile, Alice approaches the store. Once inside, she decides to get started. She came here without her workers to prepare a gift for everyone. They had a hard time with the influx of customers, but they never complained, and she wants to thank them. Miss Celine suits a warm yellow shade, and Alice chooses jewelry in exactly these tones. Then she thinks about Mr. Aji and chooses a suitable color for him. She takes a ruby ring for Neri. She carefully packs everything and is delighted that the surprise is ready. Later, as she leaves the store, she notices a silhouette ahead. Coming closer, she recognizes Mr. Aji and asks what he is doing here. He shyly replies that he wanted to give her something and hands her a bouquet of flowers. Alice wonders if this is really for her. He says she's done so much for him, so he chose flowers to match her hair. She thanks him. She says that they are very beautiful and smell nice, and admits that she also has a gift for him. She hands him the box and then reminds him about the picnic. He assures her he hasn't forgotten. The girl says she'll see her tomorrow and leaves. In the morning, Neri asks if the mistress is ready. Seeing Alice, she admires her beauty, and Alice responds with a compliment. Someone enters the room with the message that the food baskets are ready. The cook says that this is their first picnic, so she prepared more to feed 4 people. She added fruit to dessert, and Alice praises her efforts. Neri admires the treat, and Alice thanks the cook. She wishes them a good rest, and the girls set off on their journey. In the carriage, Neri says she hasn't been on a picnic in a while. Alice suggests they forget about business and just relax. Neri agrees, and they soon arrive at the place. Aji and Celine are already waiting for them. Alisa thanks them for coming. Celine says she's wearing the gift and is very grateful. Aji also admits he's wearing his. Alisa is delighted and suggests choosing a place among the flowers. Aji notices the baskets in the girls' hands. He asks them to give them to him, but they assure him that it is not difficult for them. He insists the baskets look too big. Alice gives in and thanks him for his help. Celine suggests having a snack downstairs in the shade. Alice agrees, and as they serve the food, they comment on the cook's efforts. Neri admires the appearance of the dishes, and Alice reminds her that there are fruits too. Celine sheepishly says that the lady is an aristocrat and perhaps should not eat from the same dishes as them. Alice laughs and says that they are colleagues and can share food together. She realizes that she accidentally used a word that is not there and explains the meaning. Nothing prevents them from eating together because they are going the same way. She wishes everyone a bon appetit. Nearby, Alice's ex is drinking wine and notices the group. He sees her and is amazed by the coincidence. At that moment, Christy addresses him. He turns around and confirms it's her. Christy admires the flowers and asks if it's beautiful here. He answers absent-mindedly, looking towards Alice. Christy notices this and sees Alice, shocked. The Duke says it's just nice weather. Christy drops the flowers and he offers her a snack. She agrees, but at the table, she clenches her fists in anger. Meanwhile, Alice's group enjoys the food and wine. Alice notices Aji's smile and offers to go on a boat ride. Neri supports the idea, the others agree. The boatman asks how many there are and offers his services as a rower for a fee. Aji declares that he can row on his own. The boatman is hesitant, but Aji confidently says he has experience. Celine is surprised. He explains that it was his hobby. Alice wonders, as such a hobby is usually reserved for the nobility. He may be a wealthy commoner or a ruined aristocrat. Neri calls the lady into the boat, and they sail away. The boatman warns to be careful, the water is deep. Aji begins to row. Meanwhile, Alice's ex looks at her and reminisces about the past. He remembers pushing her away, bringing her to tears, and thinks that she still loved him. Christy notices his gaze and asks if he's thinking about Alice Harpin. He replies that he was simply surprised to see her. She accuses him of being bored, and he sharply asks her to stop. He says she's not in a position to tell him what to do. Christy holds back tears. She admits she was afraid he would remember Alice again. He asks her not to cry and hands her a handkerchief. He says that if she wants to become his wife, she must remain calm. Then he suggests that they leave. Christy clutches her handkerchief and decides not to give up her seat to the Duchess. Meanwhile, Alice enjoys the sun on the boat. Neri says the water sparkles like a gem. Petals fall from the tree. Alice notices a pattern of flowers and suggests using this motif in jewelry. Celine smiles, noticing that the lady thinks about work even on vacation. Alice is embarrassed and realizes that she was the one who suggested resting. Aji says that suits her, and she thanks him, promising not to talk about business anymore. Suddenly, Alice sees a face in the water and screams that there is a person there, but the others do not notice anything. The creature flashes again, the boat rocks, and Alice begins to fall into the water. Aji manages to grab her. Neri tearfully asks if she's hurt. Alice apologizes and says she thought she saw a person in the water. Aji suggests going back. On the way back, Alice is sure she saw someone. She recalls the myths about sirens who enchant sailors. Maybe it was a siren, but why did it only appear to her? We need to figure that out. Later, she paints petals in the office. Neri reminds them it's their last day off, but Alice wants to work. And suddenly they remember their meeting with the Duke. The meeting is scheduled for lunch, and if she leaves now, she will still be late. Meanwhile, the Duke waits in the cafe and turns to the door again and again. Finally, Alice comes in and apologizes worriedly for being late. He insists he just arrived, though her gaze catches on his empty teacup. She apologizes again. He tells her she shouldn't worry so much. She admits she hasn't been herself since yesterday. He asks if someone is bothering her. She tells him about a strange creature on the lake. The Duke suggests it was the water spirit Nias, who takes the form of a boy and loves to play pranks. Alice realizes he was indeed almost playing a prank on her. The Duke says it's a good thing nothing happened to her. He explains that the spirit looks like a boy, but is actually dangerous. Many who have seen it have fallen into the water and drowned or barely escaped. There's no malice in its actions, but the consequences can be dire. Alice wonders if Mr. Aji hadn't grabbed her, things could have ended badly. She immediately catches herself and asks if this means spirits can be summoned and controlled. The Duke replies that yes, but they are spirits of lower rank. Alice thanks him for the explanation, and he asks permission to voice a personal request. She agrees, and he asks if she can devote one evening to him. Alice replies that she would rather treat him to dinner herself. Then he tells her about his aunt, the wife of Count Malscott. He was close to her as a child and recently told her about Miss Harpin. Alice is surprised, and the Duke remarks that perhaps he was hasty. Alice realizes she can't ask her aunt exactly what she said about her divorce, but the Duke assures her that her aunt considers her a remarkable woman who courageously started her own business. Such people are rare in society, and Auntie would like to meet them. The Duke suggests they dine together at Malscott Manor. Alice realizes this is her first personal visit to high society since her divorce. The Duke notices her face become serious. He adds gently that his aunt has no prejudices about her past. Judging someone based on their divorce is unfair. She's been through a lot, but she's not broken. On the contrary, she started her own business, and that speaks volumes about her strength of character. He respects her for who she is. Alice feels his words touch her heart. She clenches her fists and confidently declares that she will meet his aunt. For those who believe in her, she will not back down. The Duke thanks her, and Alice replies that she's grateful to him. She just needs to sort out the matter of taking over the firm in the next few days. She asks him to choose the date himself, and he agrees. The Duke then says he's prepared a gift for her to celebrate the business's expansion. In fact, it was Mr. Penson who gave it. He opens the box, and Alice sees an elegant pendant. She admires its shape. The Duke explains that it's the La Vie Belle logo and asks if she likes it. Alice is touched and replies that she does very much. He admits that he asked Mr. Penson to do this secretly, despite the monopoly contract. Alice notes the gem and the craftsmanship, embarrassed that she received such a gift without doing anything in return. The Duke says this is only a small part of what he is willing to do. She replies that she is already happy and will wear the jewelry with gratitude. He is shyly glad that she liked it. At this time, the prince reads about the merger of the companies and thinks what an amazing woman she is. He is waiting for her to present the design of the royal jewelry so he can see her again. He wants to speed up the meeting and thinks about a new order. He decides to make another one and calls the servants. The maids come in, and he urgently orders a message to be sent. His smile makes it clear something pleasant has happened. The next day, Neri receives a letter and guesses that it is from the prince. She tells Alice that it is urgent. Alice wonders if he changed the design deadline. After reading the letter, she smiles and says that this is good news. Soon she is already welcoming the prince to the palace. He notes that she arrived quickly. Alice replies that she is ready to appear at his call at any time. The prince notices that her attitude has changed for the better. Alice says he's put his faith in her company, and she owes it to him to try hard in return. He invites her to sit down. She reminds him that he had business. The prince announces that the Empress's birthday is coming soon, and he wants to order decoration for the ball. Alice understands how serious this is and thanks her for her trust. The prince emphasizes the importance of the order and asks that the matter be approached with the utmost care. It's an anniversary and the decoration has to be perfect. Alice takes out a notebook and asks about the Empress's preferences. He advises creating several options since the mother has exquisite taste. You don't have to worry about the fee. Alice promises to create a design worthy of the greatness of the ruler's wife. The prince asks to be kept informed so that the decoration does not look excessive. Alice agrees and promises to take everything into account. She understands that this is a chance to gain a foothold at court. Ordinary beauty is not enough. Every detail must be taken into account. She asks about the designer of the Empress's dress. Soon Alice goes to him without warning, realizing that time is short. This designer has been creating outfits for the imperial family for 5 years. The decoration must match the dress perfectly, otherwise it loses its meaning. Time is short. We need to act quickly. She arrives at the workshop and is surprised by its modest layout. It reminds her of her first meeting with Mr. Penson. There is a sense of individuality inside. The worker asks if she's signed up. Alice replies no and asks to meet Baroness Dickinson. They explain to her that appointments are by appointment only, and Alice understands her haste. Another employee appears and clarifies the situation. Alice feels awkward when the Baroness herself comes out. This is Ashley Dickinson, designer of the imperial gowns. Alice introduces herself and explains that she didn't come for a dress, but for information. Over tea, the Baroness asks what help is needed. Alice admits that she wants to please the Empress and needs details. The color of the dress and accessories are important to her. She also asks for dimensions. The Baroness wonders why the jeweler needs them. Alice explains that the stones must match the figure. Just like a dress, jewelry should highlight your best features. The Baroness nods and asks what Alice expects in return. The order itself is not complicated. But what will she get? Alice offers 3% of the payment. The Baroness thinks. Elisa adds that the collaboration could be long-term. If the Empress is satisfied, the orders will be constant, and the Baroness will receive a percentage from each. The more successes, the higher her income. The Baroness is interested in the amount promised by the prince. Hearing about 1 billion deniets, she agrees and praises Alice's persuasive skills. Then he asks about the timing. Alice says they need about 4 days. She would like to hear the Baroness's comments and discuss further cooperation. The Baroness asks for time until the evening to respond. In the office, Alice recalls the conversation. This is the most difficult deal of all. With other partners, everything was simpler. Ashley Dickinson will calculate everything down to the last detail. Alice tries not to think about the possible refusal. There is still a lot of work ahead. She has support, and it gives her strength. Neri comes into the room and asks how the day went. Alice hands her the document. Neri is delighted to learn that the firm will be creating jewelry for the Empress. She congratulates the lady. Who would have thought that their case would reach the imperial palace? Alice suggests going down and discussing everything in more detail. In the living room, she admits that things were not easy with the Baroness. Neri notes her courage and excellent intuition. Alice laughs and says that Neri is becoming more cunning every day.